Hi everyone! So some of you may know if you follow us on social media, I am getting ready to run my first homebrew campaign. And this is actually my second time GMing. I decided to run it in D&D 5th edition, mainly because I knew I wanted to play kind of a classic dungeon crawl, and that seems fitting to use D&D. The previous game that I ran was in D&D. It was using the starter set, so I'm already a little familiar with GMing or DMing in 5th edition, so I figured to kind of give myself a leg up, I'd do that. So one of the main resources I've been using is obviously the Dungeon Master's Guide. DM Guide has a great section on kind of creating your own campaign, creating your own world, and I followed that to some extent. So really what I started out with was an idea that I wanted to run a campaign and make it so that within the world of the game, the mechanics we were playing in and everything made sense why players and characters may not be there for a session every now and then or a couple sessions. And this is mainly because a lot of the people that we play with in our physical games, sometimes their schedules just will get really busy and it makes it really hard to game. So instead of having to put that game on the back burner for a month while that person's schedule frees up, we can keep playing and then slot them back in once their schedule is more open. And now I just had to figure out the mechanic to make that work. One of our friends, and one of the guys we're probably going to game with, Brent, suggested using planar travel, portals and stuff like that. And that kind of sparked the idea and really got the ball rolling for me. So I started kind of figuring out a little bit like, okay, what's going on? What's causing this? Of this idea of something happening to cause magic to basically be non-existent in the world, very rare, and especially like big magic, just there isn't enough magical energy to have those big spells, those big things. Still figuring out all the details, and I'm not going to say exactly what happens because I don't want my players to know yet. I want them to help kind of discover what's going on, but that at least 1,000 years ago, magic disappeared. And so everyone living today doesn't remember a time when magic was real. Some magic does exist in the world, but a lot of it's just kind of pared down, and it's a lot more of the like, there's not a lot of the race abilities, so kind of that innate ability, but less of the class abilities in magic. Because of whatever happened, a lot of the like really magical creatures have disappeared. So things like dragons are kind of like, well, maybe dragons exist, but you know, or maybe it's just a myth that Grandpa told us about to scare us. So the start of the campaign is kind of the event that starts reintroducing magic into the world. And I've actually set it so that magic has started creeping into the world about 10, 15, 20 years before the campaign starts, but this town, this region, really hasn't seen that effect yet. They've heard stories and a few people have passed through, but still there are some people that are questioning, okay, was that just like magic trick as in like a magician, you know, pulling a rabbit out of a hat, or was it an actual spellcaster? So from there, kind of following the GM's guide, and also another resource I used a lot was the blog Loot the Room. He has a whole like creating a campaign series on there of blog posts that I was reading and kind of getting some inspiration from there. And I'm starting small. I'm starting with this little town and have figured out that town. Still need to fill in a few details there, and then also figured out basic ideas about the region. I'm going to draw out a fancier map, but to start off, I just did a little post-it note with the town right here. That's at the Headless Mountain. And this is the trade lands, and then some names of some cities or some countries around it to give a starting point. I did also create a pantheon for the world, specifically for the region. And I've told my players, if you want to play like a cleric of a god that's not in this pantheon, go for it. There's kind of a wide variety of regions, and especially because it's the town is in a trade lands, there's quite a bit of people from all over the world passing through. So yeah, so my next step, I've kind of sketched out the first session, and I'm talking with a friend and fellow GM, Tucker, about it to get some input from him. And then I'm also going to map out, actually take this Post-it note and make it into a nicer map, just because I would like it to look nicer, so that I can give that to my players as well. I'm still finishing on working on the hatching on this, but I have laid out the first level of the mine. So this is kind of where my players are going to be during part of the first session. And I'm not going to show any more because I want that to be a surprise. The players get to see this because this is kind of the known first level of the mine, but they don't know what everything is like in the mine. I actually made this using the random dungeon generator found in the DM's guide. Using those random tables was actually really nice because it gave me a basic structure to work off of, and then I can make tweaks. And you know, I'll keep you updated on how it goes. Pretty much at the point where I think the next step is having a session 0 to, you know, just kind of explain the basic overview of the campaign and then do some character creation with any players that need a little help or have people that are like, hey, I want to have my character know one of the other characters so they can sit down and do that. But yeah, I will keep you updated, and if you've got any tips and tricks for running your own campaign, let's talk about them down below. I'm happy to always have another trick and tool in my toolbox that I can use. The next diary entry is probably going to at least be telling you about how session 0 went, and possibly it might be session 0 and session 1. We'll see kind of where it falls, how much happens in session 0, and what my thoughts are. We'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!